Alright, hey guys, today we're going to talk about domestic issues here, and we're going to also see, very sadly, George Washington going out of office. So the essential questions are, what three things did Washington warn against in his farewell address? This is probably the number one document of this course. So you will look at the farewell address later. And I will also have you listen to part of the Hamilton musical that has the Washington's farewell address in it. Why did Washington not run for a third term? Because he could have. And why was the outcome of the election of 1796 very strange? Okay. All right. So I'm going to move myself up. If you notice, just over my shoulder is George, famous portrait of him. So that's kind of interesting since he's going out of office today. All right, so the domestic issues. So before leaving U.S. forts, the British, who are just a little angry still over the Revolutionary War, sold more weapons to the Indians. Remember that they had not been allies with the Indians, but now they just kind of want to get back at some colonists. So they sell weapons to the Indians and encourage them to attack the colonists. So, I mean, they're not salty at all, are they? So 1794, the U.S. Army led by General Anthony Wayne will defeat the Native Americans at the Battle of Fallen Timbers, because the Native Americans are now armed more and they're attacking the colonists, which are now the Americans. And they're with General Anthony Wayne, the Americans, the U.S. Army now will defeat the Native Americans at the Battle of Fallen Timbers in northwest Ohio. The Native Americans surrender claim to the Ohio Territory, which now we see we can open up settlement to the Americans. So we can open up further settlement and move people further west. And I want to show you a few pictures related to that. I think this is one of the coolest pictures I get to show in class just because I like the colors. But this is the Battle of Fallen Timbers. And you see the Native Americans fighting. You see the trees knocked over, literally fallen timbers. And the American U.S. Army charging in there. Okay, here's an interesting battle map that you can see here, and it shows the line here, Indian cession. So that meant this is what the tribes had, and that's what they're going to lose with the Treaty of Grenville when this is over. So they will lose all of this territory, and the Native Americans will be pushed further west. Okay, all right, so it says, I wrote out to the side here, it opens up the West for expansion, and that's for white expansion, okay, for the white Americans to push west. It says, the French Revolution deeply divided the two political parties in the United States, the Federalists under Hamilton and the Democratic Republicans under Jefferson. And these two parties are going to be further divided over the French, because Jefferson, the Democrat Republicans, are going to support the French. Jefferson's very influenced by French literature, architecture. His home looks like a French museum. So he's very pro-French, whereas Hamilton, remember, is very pro-Britain. So it further divides the two when the French Revolution occurs. With all this disagreement going on, Washington's just sick of this. I mean, he's like, boys, I got Mount Vernon waiting on me, which is his home that he's been away from for so long, and he just wants to go home. So it says Washington decided not to run for a third term. This is huge. I mean, can you see any president today saying, okay, I think I'm ready to step down? You know, if there was no two-term limit, I mean, I think we would have some of these guys for a long time because they're power hungry, right? So Washington decides not to run. It really shows you his leadership. It shows you that he thought that a president is not a dictator, and a dictator has power until they die. and he didn't want that. So this decision would set up a precedent for U.S. presidents to follow until the only president to serve more than 2 terms is, and you need to write in the blank, FDR, Franklin Roosevelt. So he will actually get elected to 4 terms. 4 terms, which was a lot. Okay, and then we fix it after him to 2 terms limit. All right, so Washington gives his farewell address in 1796. How sad. He will say goodbye to the American people. He, with his very, very close friend, you could say sort of was his mentee, Alexander Hamilton, will write this. Alexander Hamilton writes most of the speech, this farewell address, with Washington's input. And Alexander was an exceptional writer, and he adored Washington, did not want Washington to step down. But in this address, Washington says he's leaving. He's going home to Mount Vernon. He will no longer be president. He warns against 3 things, and you must learn them. Sectionalism. He's saying, like our parties are divided, our country is being divided into northern merchants and tradesmen and southern farmers with slavery, and that might be a problem later. He's a genius. Okay, of course it's a problem later. Political parties, as I've just mentioned, the constant bickering that's driven him into retirement. He's sick of it. Remember, we call Washington Federalist because he supported strong government, but really, he's not really heavy on either side. He was very much a fair man. And so he's just sick of the political party bickering. Can you imagine what he would think if he was in America today? I mean, it's off the chain. It's ridiculous. And becoming too attached to a foreign nation. He said we should not, like Hamilton loves Great Britain and Jefferson loves the French, whose flag's also in the background over there. He's saying, we should not wrap ourselves in their flags and be all about these countries. We should be about America, the United States. And we have got to stop picking sides on these countries. If we get attached to one of these countries and there's a war that breaks out, it's going to divide our people. So he steps down, and you'll read that, as I said, his farewell address. I do want to mention here that you will watch part of the musical Hamilton. I don't have the actual musical because that would be illegal, but they are going to, these 2 men, Lin-Manuel Miranda and Chris Jackson, who plays George Washington, will perform at the White House this scene. And this is the scene in the musical Hamilton when Washington gives his farewell address. And he says, Washington's going home. It's time to go home. And it's really, really powerful. And you also see, I want you to watch how Hamilton starts the speech, like he's writing it, and then eventually they switch places, and Washington's in the forefront and Hamilton's in the back. So you'll see, a difference there because it's showing how Washington gives the speech, but Hamilton wrote a lot of it. Then the election of 1796, you're going to have Adams as the Federalist with 71 electoral votes against Jefferson, the Democratic Republican, with 68. There was more in there than just those 2, Adams and Jefferson. I'll show you that real quick. This is a nightmare. Look at all these people. You got Jefferson. Here's John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Pinckney, Burr, which is the infamous Burr that's going to kill Hamilton, S. Adams, Ellsworth, Clinton. I mean, there's a ton, not Bill or Hillary. Ton. Then you got these down here, Jay, Iredell. I mean, you can't have this many people running for president because, as you see, it splits the votes up. So this was just a mess. It was a total mess. In the end, what they decided was whoever has the most will win. And Adams has 71 electoral votes. The Constitution at the time said the runner-up would be the vice president. So Jefferson becomes Adams' vice president. The loser becomes, Second loser or first loser, whatever, becomes the vice president. So he's Democrat Republican, and now he's going to have to answer to a Federalist president. That is a mess. They're not going to work together well. So that's crazy. Think about it like in the last election, if Trump was declared the winner and Hillary was declared his vice president. Okay, say no more on that subject. So, I mean, that's kind of like saying this. I mean, this is crazy. That's how it's going to be. We will change this by the 12th Amendment. I say you get one, you get the other one, so they'll run together. Like Donald Trump picked Pence. So you get one as president, you get the other one as vice president. So changed by the 12th Amendment in 1804, shortly after this nightmare. Okay? All right, let's go back to our essential questions. Let me move myself. Which were, what three things does Washington warn against? Sectionalism, dividing the country between farmers and merchants and other things. Political parties, Democratic, Republican versus Federalist, and all their fighting. And becoming too attached to any nation like France or Britain. You see just a theme in general of we're not united if we are divided sectionally, if we're divided by politics, if we're divided by what country we support. We need to unite, Washington said. If only we had listened to him, especially on political parties, my goodness. Okay, the next question is, why did he not run for a third term, Washington? Because he was tired of the political party fighting, and he just wanted to go home. He was ready for retirement. He was sick of all the politics. Why was the outcome of the election of 1796 strange? Because you have one man, Jefferson, as Democratic Republican vice president, with Adams as Federalist president. So you have a president and a vice president from two different parties. Plus they had so many people running in it. It was just a mess. So that's the answer to that question. You need to make sure you write 3 questions on the side and write your summary. Okay? Bye guys.